So, is it possible to have Dropbox on a D drive and at the same time have it backed up by Windows 10 file history? Well, the answer is no, you can't. At least I have failed to make it work. So I'm going to move the Dropbox folder back to C drive and then show you the final settings of this Kangaro Mobile Desktop with only 32 GB on the hard drive, but with Office installed, and show you how I made it run reasonably efficient. So stay tuned. Let's recap why Windows 10 file history backup of the Dropbox folder on the D drive doesn't work. In disk management, D drive, change drive letter and path, I added an alias to a desktop folder called SD card, and you can see it here. And in Dropbox, settings, preferences, sync, Dropbox folder location, I've set the path to this D drive alias. Now Dropbox is happy with this. We see that the Dropbox folder is happily residing on the D drive. But Windows 10 file history, managed in update and security of Windows settings, in the backup settings, if I go in here and try to add the Dropbox folder as a folder to backup, I will get an error. And a strange error it is. So I give up and will move this Dropbox folder back to the C drive so that I can use Windows file history to back it up. First, I pause syncing to ensure that we don't get any interruptions or conflicts during the move of the folder. Then in Dropbox, under the Sync tab, I select Move and I select this PC, local disk, users, BLOATWARE, which is the user of this PC. So this is the default folder for the Dropbox folder, so I will move it there. And Dropbox wants me to confirm, so I do that. And moving is on the way. Now what we will see is that the D drive will gain free space because we move the Dropbox folder from it, but the local disk will lose free disk space. And of course this is why I wanted the Dropbox folder to be here, but I'm now going to prioritize the file history backup. So I'm going to use this as this free space here, and just fingers crossed, fingers crossed, the Dropbox folder won't grow so much so that I'm unable to operate this, or put another way, the free space will remain large enough so that Windows 10 and the Office can continue to work properly. Now the worries we have, or I have, is actually that the free space on the C drive will be so small that the Windows Update stops working. It actually needs some space to cache download files before installing them, and sometimes the updates are quite large. So, I just have to go with the flow here and keep my fingers crossed and hope for the best that that will not happen. Also, Windows 10 actually has an option that when it detects that it doesn't have enough room on the C drive, it will actually pop up a dialog where you can select the D drive or any other drive you have as a storage for the download. The irritating part of this dialog is that I can't set these settings in advance. I have to wait for Windows to detect that the disk space isn't enough. But well, I just have to wait for that day and deal with the error then. So now Dropbox is finalizing moving the files. And now it has moved the files. And we can update the disk footprints and see that now we have on the SD card 27.7 GB free, while the C drive has a reduced free space. It reduced down to 12.8 GB free space, but hopefully that's enough. And we can see that the D drive doesn't any longer have the Dropbox folder, so Dropbox has cleaned up after itself, nice and clean. Now we can add the Dropbox folder to the Windows 10 file history for backup. So just add the Dropbox folder, which of course is on the C drive, users, current user, and here we have the Dropbox folder, so choose this folder. And now you see it's added to file history, and we can force a backup here. And of course this will take a while. And the backup has completed, and we can go to the D drive and see how much space the file history now occupies. And we have the whole Dropbox folder here, 1.59 GB now in the file history. The reason I wanted the Dropbox folder in the Windows 10 file history is that in this way I want to try out to have a 1 hour backup and file history of every change in the Dropbox folder. Dropbox by itself provides a service where you can recover files up to 30 days after the change, so it's kind of overkill, but I still find this, I wanted to experiment with this, and it's nice to have an extra backup if something fails, and you, especially if you by accident delete something from Dropbox and you forget to check for it for 30 days, then this Windows backup will actually, as long as it stays on the D drive, we will have the Dropbox files still in the Windows 10 file history on this machine. So that's a goal, and now we achieved it. After a reboot here, the final verdict on the disk footprint is that on the C drive we have 14.3 GB free, and on the SD card we have 26.1 GB free. So quite reasonable. I think this will work just fine. So final thing, now we don't need this alias for the D drive, so I will remove it. Right click the Windows symbol, select Disk Management, right click the D drive, go to Change Drive and Letter Path, select the alias, remove it, yes, and then this residue here shouldn't work. Let's try it. No, it doesn't. So we can remove it. So let's summarize. We use the default Dropbox folder. We use file history backup to the D drive. We back up every hour, and we do it until space is needed, and we have the Dropbox folder included in the file history backup. We have Office 2013 installed to the D drive, occupying roughly 1.16 gigabytes. So the rest of Office, that's around 3 gigabytes, is actually DLLs and binaries that always go to the C drive. We have Windows settings storage set to storage sense enabled. And here we enabled everything we can do to free up space. Temporary files, recycle bin files, and download files. And here we can't set how Windows is freeing up space, so we need to come back here if we ran out of space. I think somewhere here the hidden dialog where you tell Windows to start using the D drive for update downloads will pop up when you're low on space, but you can't set it in advance. Or rather, I don't know how to do that. At this point in time, we were unable to free up any space. So everything is as compressed as we can get it. Just mentioning, we did a manual uninstall of some games and so on. So in Windows settings, apps and features, you can sort apps on size, and default here is there's a lot of games here, so you can uninstall games like you will get Disney Magic Kingdom 500 megabyte, Candy Crush Saga 150 gigabytes, you have Spotify, you have March of Engines, you have Bubble Witch 3 Sega and so on. So you can go through this list and uninstall those games that takes up size, and always go down here to check on to find apps that you also can uninstall that with unknown size. So for some reason Windows can't see the size for Dropbox and Microsoft Office Professional. Of course you want to keep them, but also always check the list for the apps with unknown size. But yeah, this is a manual feature, and we may have to come back here and remove things that Windows will try to sell to us that perhaps will come with future downloads. So yeah, but we remove them and gain some good 1 gigabytes, 1.5 gigabytes we freed up this way. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and informative. So see you next time. Bye bye.
If you like my videos,
feel free to do nothing. Just grab a cup of coffee
and enjoy.